Ocasio-Cortez holding a closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill. An apparent attempt to clear the air coming after weeks of tension between Speaker Pelosi and 4 freshman congresswomen. We're keeping an eye on this in case either of them speaks. In addition, we will hear from Speaker Pelosi. She'll hold a weekly news conference a bit later, so stay tuned for all that inside of America's Newsroom. Also, new from overnight, new this morning, rising tensions on 2 fronts. First with North Korea speaking out on his first missile test in about 2 months, calling it a solemn warning to South Korea. As we say good morning, you almost made it on a Friday. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in New York City. Big welcome to Lisa Cunha.
Thank you so much.
Out of Denver, Colorado.
That's right.
How's the New York heat feeling?
Is feeling it. I'm feeling it.
Right.
It's not
Good.
so bad. Yeah.
Nice to have you
I like
back.
it here, though. I'm in for Sandra Smith. Tensions on the peninsula flaring up as the U.S. prepares for joint military exercises with Seoul. Meanwhile, Tehran appears to be rattling sabers. A U.S. official tells Fox News that Iran has conducted a missile test of its own.
So Lucas Tomlinson gets us started from the Pentagon. Busy morning there already. Lucas.
Bill, North Korea was not the only rogue nation launching missiles this week. Iran was, too. A U.S. official tells me hours before North Korea's missile launch, Iran fired off a medium-range ballistic missile from the south, traveling over 650 miles, landing east of the capital, Tehran. The missile, known as the Shahab-3, based on a North Korean design, has been in Iran's arsenal for decades. But intelligence officials worry a nuclear warhead could be attached to the nose cone in the future, putting U.S. forces in the region and Israel at risk. This latest provocation comes 1 week after Iranian forces seized that British oil tanker and her 23 crew members. Iran says it seized the tanker because British forces seized an Iranian tanker off Gibraltar earlier this month. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke to Bret Baier about Iran last night.
They continue to build out their missile program. They continue to work on their nuclear systems. And yet they want to tell the world that, no, they're just defensive and they're just being a normal nation, and we all see differently.
If Iran tried to seize a U.S. flagged vessel in the Strait, how should or would U.S. forces in the region respond?
When American lives are at risk, the United States will defend itself wherever that risk takes place.
Today, North Korea released these photos showing its launch of 2 short-range ballistic missiles. One flew 430 miles into the Sea of Japan, or East Sea, reaching a height of 30 miles, about halfway to space. North Korea launched these missiles from a mobile launcher. U.S. officials say this is a new type of missile similar to the launch in May, based on a Russian missile design. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un witnessed the launch in person. These new missiles now put all of South Korea and parts of Japan in range. Officials call this a first-strike weapon. The North Korean launch took place hours after President Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton left South Korea. Bill?
Lot to follow. Lucas, thank you. Back to you for developments there from the Pentagon today. Thank you, Lucas.
Another alert now. President Trump sounding off on Robert Mueller's testimony. In an exclusive interview with Sean Hannity last night, the president slamming Mueller's, quote, poor performance, calling it a disgrace to our country.
So they create this phony crime, and then they say he obstructed. They said there was no collusion, but he obstructed. And there has never been anything like this ever before in our country. The crime was committed on the other side, and we'll find out about that.
Ellison Barber is live at the White House with more. Hi, Ellison.
Hi, Alicia. President Trump said a lot of things we've heard him say about the Russia probe in the past, that the special counsel, the entire team, was biased, that it was a witch hunt, that it should never happen to another president. Last night, he did not mince words or couch his displeasure with the special counsel's probe, telling Sean Hannity it was a disgrace from every standpoint and that he believes it amounts to treason.
Hopefully, we're going to be able to find out how a thing like this started. It was a disgrace to our country. And then on top of it, you watched that performance. It was shocking and very sad. This was a fake witch hunt, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again. This was treason. This was high crimes. This was everything as bad a definition as you want to come up with.
Democrats who previously called for impeachment continue to make that case, but only 4 Democrats have joined their calls post-Mueller testimony. Last night, Representative Catherine Clark, the vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus, called for an impeachment inquiry. She is the highest-ranking Democrat to do so, but for now, Democrats seem prepared to stay focused on the ongoing House investigations.
The hearing, as you know, there was a caucus meeting. It was people had their opinions, but as right now, the caucus as a whole, we've decided not to move forward on the impeachment. We're continuing letting the committees continue their work on the oversight, and then we'll take it from there.
President Trump told Sean Hannity he was not planning on watching much of Mueller's testimonies, but he says what he saw was so bad, he watched a whole lot more than he planned to. Alicia?
Couldn't help himself. Ellison Barber at the White House. Thank you so much.
So we are hearing that meeting with Speaker Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez is now over. Apparently lasted about 30 minutes, we believe. There's some videotape. We'll share that in a moment. David Drucker, senior political correspondent, Washington Examiner. David, good morning to you. So
good morning, Bill.
This has been to underscore, to understate, I should say, a tense relationship. You have the meeting to accomplish what, do you think, David?
Well, look, I don't know if the meeting accomplished anything. We'll have to see what both Speaker Pelosi and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez have to say about the meeting. But clearly there have been tensions between a lot of the young, ambitious House Democratic freshmen and some in the leadership, particularly Speaker Pelosi. I think Pelosi takes a global view of this. She's trying to defend a new House majority that was built largely on winning over Republican-held swing districts that voted for President Trump in 2016 and may vote for him again in 2018, as well as some of these suburban districts that have been trending away from the Republican Party. And so she has a lot of different members to deal with, whereas a lot of the young liberals, and I say young meaning they haven't been in Congress that long, come from gerrymandered districts that were drawn to elect any Democrat, anybody with a D next to their name. And this is something they're going to have to work through in the months ahead. I do think that once they crown a Democratic presidential nominee, which will happen a little less than a year from now, next year in July, that could solve a lot of these problems because the party will have a leader, at least for a few months. And if that leader can unify the party in a race against President Trump, then all of the stuff we were talking about right now is not really going to matter.
Okay, I guess from the outset, if you think one meeting is going to settle all of it, you can forget about it. You know, Kellyanne Conway has made the point repeatedly that these 4 freshman women, they enjoy the attention. They have embraced their position in this new Congress. So when we get reaction, we're going to play that for our viewers. First, though, Donald Trump Jr., did you see him on with Tucker last night? So he's reacting now to the Mueller testimony and characterizes it the following way.
Ultimately, I think the American public saw that he was put in there as a figurehead because he was the former leader of the FBI. He was a decorated Marine, and that he would do what's right. But no one's talking about this guy put in 19 leftist Hillary Clinton donor lawyers. The inmates were running the asylum, and those inmates were the Democrat Party.
So part of that reaction was the question from Steve Shabb, a congressman from Ohio, who was asking about Fusion GPS on this exchange. Let's go back to Wednesday.
When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with that.
Let me just help. It was. It's not a trick question. Right? It was Fusion GPS.
So, David, the nut of this now is that Republicans have a new storyline, and they're saying Mueller was not even involved in getting this report done, and he did not show clear authority on Wednesday of this week. Go ahead.
Well, look, I think everybody is trying to make the most of what Mueller said or didn't say and use it to their advantage. I don't think the American public is going to look at this the same way. I think that the public is going to be split along party lines. I never expected Mueller to make news, and I never expected Mueller to change minds because the public opinion is so fixed on this. If you went into this thinking Trump was a crook, you still think he's a crook. And if you went into this thinking he was innocent as the driven snow, that's what you still think. I think what's interesting about the Mueller testimony is that he took great pains to not add to the report or to the statement he gave subsequent to that. So he didn't fan the flames of impeachment, and he didn't have anything more to say that was more damaging to the president than what the report already said. That should be a good outcome for Republicans if they don't want Trump to be impeached. And I think it made it harder for Democrats who believe the president deserves to be impeached to have more evidence, at least in the immediate. So they're going to have to continue through the oversight process to see if they can dig more things up that would create more political support broadly for the idea of impeaching the president. So it's interesting to see Republicans, go after Mueller when really it wasn't necessarily a bad day for him. I'd say the other person that had a really good day because of the Mueller testimony was Speaker Pelosi. She has been trying to put the brakes on a lot of her members who want impeachment now, and that testimony helped her in that regard. Okay, David, so much to have you. Pleasure having you back. David Drucker there in Washington. This meeting has wrapped up. When we get reaction from Speaker Pelosi, we'll give it to you there. We have our reporters on the Hill there. She said going into the meeting, quote, "I'm looking forward to it." So that's coming up momentarily. David, thanks for that. 11 past the hour now. Got some news on the economy. Alicia.
Another alert. The U.S. economy slowing in the second quarter, but growth was stronger than analysts expected. The Commerce Department just reporting that GDP grew at 2.1% from April to June. Personal consumption, a leading contributor to that growth, which was offset by a growing trade gap. The GDP fell from 3.1% in the first quarter.
Get some reaction more on that as we move throughout the morning. Stocks open in 20 minutes. Meanwhile, police are making an arrest in a shooting spree that left 4 dead, including the suspect's father and brother. What led to this rampage?
Plus, things get heated on Capitol Hill as House Democrats greenlight subpoenas for Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner's personal emails and texts. Tom Dupree weighs in on this latest effort to investigate the Trump administration.
Also in a moment, more from the president's exclusive interview, his first reaction to the Mueller hearing. We were with Sean Hannity last night. We will hear from Sean Spicer. He's coming up live next, right here.
It was a disgrace from every standpoint, and I would say that most people have never seen anything like it. And then on top of it, you watch that performance. It was
Goza killed his father and brother and hurt his mother in the family's apartment in the San Fernando Valley before trying to rob a man outside a bank. Investigators believe he may have also shot and killed his ex-girlfriend and injured an employee at a North Hollywood gas station. Police arrested Zaragoza after they say he fatally shot another man on a bus. There's no word on a possible motive.
This was a fake witch hunt, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again. This was treason. This was high crimes. This was everything as bad a definition as you want to come up with. This should never be allowed to happen to our country
So that is some of the first reaction of the president with Sean Hannity last night, the fallout over the former special counsel's testimony. Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary, with me now. Sean, nice to see you on a Friday especially. Where do you think we go next?
Well, I think the Democrats are going to try to figure out how to keep this thing going, but that hearing really took the wind out of their sails. This was supposed to be the visual manifestation of the report. They'd kind of laid it all out there. They thought the American people would be with them after Mueller testified. I think he clearly fumbled through the testimony, looked aloof, didn't understand parts of his own report, called into question whether he read it, whether he wrote it, and I think really undermined the case that the Democrats were hoping to make. So it was, I think, clearly a victory for the president. I know Democrats need and want to keep this alive. That hearing made it much, much more difficult.
Why do they need to keep it alive? Is that money or is that a message? What is that, Sean?
Well, I think it's two things. One is they need to keep their base motivated. This is something that their base, when they lost the last election, figured that that this is the way that they would make up for that loss. And so they've got a lot of pressure from the left-wing socialist progressive base of their party that's forced them to keep this up. And the second thing, to be honest with you, is that the president's actually getting things done. They can't run against the economy. They can't run against all the other things that the president is doing because, by and large, the American people supports the president's policies and the accomplishments that he's receiving. So it makes it hard for them to campaign against him on the economy, the number one issue that people care about, when you continue to see things move in a very positive direction, when more and more people from all sectors of our society are going back to work, getting their wages increased. It makes it difficult for them to make that policy argument, so they're trying to figure out how they can appease their base and do this.
Okay, so
but I think it's turning off more people than anything.
Here's one idea now. Tucker's team caught up with Speaker Pelosi yesterday. I'm going to play that for you and listen to the last part of her answer here.
Speaker Pelosi, Alex back with Tucker Carlson tonight. In January, you wondered what Putin had on Trump. After yesterday, are you any closer to figure that out?
We're in the courts right now.
Are you any closer to figuring out what Putin has on Trump?
That's why we need to have, they have to answer our subpoenas.
Do you still think Putin might have some sort of blackmail on the president?
I wonder what the Putin has politically, financially, or personally.
So our president could be subject to blackmail, you think?
The politically, financially, personally answer there, Sean.
I mean, I don't even know how to answer that. She seems flustered with her own answer. They don't know where to go. They've had a House hearing, a Senate hearing, the Mueller hearing, countless investigations through the committees that they now control in the House, and they've turned up nothing. This is seriously getting tired, and I think the problem is that they recognize that the American people have said, wait a second, we gave these folks the majority, and look at what they've done. They're not fighting for these progressive policies. They're not keeping their base happy on the policy front. And the American people, who are largely looking at what they're doing with this majority, investigation after investigation, are wondering whether or not they are proper stewards of this majority and the direction and policies that people wanted addressed.
I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I saw very few people even watching it. That for another day.
Well, you know, it
Go ahead.
I think that's the problem, is they put a lot of eggs in this basket, and it's not going to yield anything for them.
What about this meeting what about Speaker Pelosi and AOC meeting right now? You know, that meeting's wrapped up. What do you think comes of this relationship?
Right. Well, I love the fact that the speaker said that she looked forward to that meeting, because I'd love to know what the rest of her schedule looks like. If that's the meeting she's looking forward to today, that doesn't say a lot about the rest of her schedule. Look, this is embarrassing for the Democratic Party. Say what you will about Nancy Pelosi, but she is a shrewd tactician. And the idea that you have these 4 freshman members of Congress, in particular, this first-term 29-year-old, leading the Democratic Party, making everybody respond to them, including their presidential candidates, is embarrassing. Nancy Pelosi, the idea that she took over, got this majority, and now she is taking all of the cues from a 29-year-old freshman, is embarrassing, frankly.
Thank you, Sean. Have a good weekend. We'll see.
You bet, guys.
We'll see what they both have to say very soon, we do believe, from the Hill. Thank you, Sean.
You bet.
Governor of Puerto Rico stepping down, but the protests there may not be over yet. Straight ahead, why all those demonstrators may now have a new target. Live to Puerto Rico next.
Also, some stunning news out of Camp Pendleton. 16 U.S. Marines arrested during morning roll call. The charges that they are facing now.
If they are, in fact, found guilty.
To the border. Some of the suspects are accused of helping to transport migrants into the country. 2 Marines arrested on similar charges earlier this month.
The people of Puerto Rico celebrating the resignation of Governor Ricardo Rosselló after the publication of offensive online messages between Rosselló and his top aides. But protesters also say they want to root out widespread political corruption. Brian Yenes is live in San Juan with more. Hi, Brian.
Good morning, Alicia. Well, look, Governor Ricardo Rosselló officially submitted his resignation letter yesterday, and he'll be out of office on Friday, August 2nd. But that still has not stopped the protests here. The chants of Wanda renuncia, Wanda resign, are still making their way around. That is supposed to be the next interim governor. Take a look at this video. This is a protest/celebration yesterday on the Gold Mile here in San Juan. It's the financial district. People saying that they want a clean house and go after the other people associated with the Rosselló administration, who they believe is completely corrupt, and they blame for mismanaging millions, if not billions, of dollars. Now, Wanda Vasquez, she's the Secretary of Justice here in Puerto Rico. I just got off the phone with the Office of Ethics here in Puerto Rico, and their lawyers are now evaluating screenshots of text messages that allegedly show that Wanda Vasquez was really not wanting to investigate allegations of mismanagement of trucks full of emergency supplies during Hurricane Maria. Their lawyers are evaluating whether or not they're going to open an investigation into her. She has faced allegations of corruption in the past, but has been cleared. In a statement today, Wanda Vasquez said this, quote, "The desire and agenda of some to try to undermine the credibility of at this moment of transcendental importance to Puerto Rico and to destabilize the governmental order is evident, which only attempts to perpetuate instability and restlessness in the country. Again, she is due to become the governor on Friday, August 2nd. Meantime, FEMA announcing yesterday that effective immediately, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico must receive approval from the agency to draw down all grant funds for Hurricanes Irma and Maria. So now FEMA taking extra steps to protect taxpayer money, given all that's happening here on the island. In a statement, FEMA saying, quote, additionally, the drawdown request must be accompanied with supporting documentation to certify the amount being requested for drawdown is eligible, allowable, reasonable, and in alignment with federal procurement regulations. Alicia, $42 billion appropriated from Congress here for Puerto Rico to recover from Hurricane Maria. $13 billion of that has made its way down the island. Now FEMA saying they're going to be adding more controls here to evaluate how that money is being spent. The people of Puerto Rico, there are already blue tarps on their roofs still. It has been a really slow drawdown if you speak to the people here. And now, because of this administration, that money is going to be coming down potentially slower. Alicia?
And just as we're heading into hurricane season once again, Brian Yanis in Puerto Rico, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Brian. Apparently, they are not done yet. House Democrats pushing forward in their investigations. The latest move, subpoenas for Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. Reaction from Tom Dupree as to whether or not that goes anywhere in a moment.
Plus, police potentially closing in on 2 teenage murder suspects accused of killing at least 3 people, including a North Carolina woman. The latest on the manhunt, straight ahead.
We can now confirm that there have been 2 established and corroborated sightings of the suspects in the Gillum area. If they are spotted, do not approach.
Second quarter that shows a slowing trend likely influenced the Fed when it makes its decision next week on what to do with interest rates, likely a quarter-point cut. That's what they all believe. Amazon, Google had numbers out after the close yesterday.
That's right.
Google blew it out, and Google's flying today, so we're... it's okay for July, right?
Yes,
Friday,
we're doing
July.
okay. We have to keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right on. So 9:32, police in Canada say they're closing in on 2 teenagers suspected of killing 3 people, including a woman out of North Carolina and her boyfriend. That couple found shot dead along a remote highway. Jackie Heinrich is watching that from our studio here in New York. Jackie.
Well, Bill, police confirmed 2 sightings of those teenage fugitives in Gillum, Manitoba. It's about 1,500 miles from the U.S. border in North Dakota and Minnesota. And that is where the search is on, with checkpoints, drones, and dogs, and an urgent message not to approach if you see them. 18-year-old Briar Schmigelski and 19-year-old Cam McLeod are wanted for the murder of Leonard Dick and suspected in the murders of a North Carolina woman, China Deese, and her Australian boyfriend, Lucas Fowler. The couple was traveling in British Columbia when they were found shot to death July 15th. They were seen here on surveillance video hugging just 2 days prior to that. As police looked into their deaths, a search was already underway for the boys some 300 miles away in Dease Lake. They were initially thought to be missing, telling their parents they were heading to the Yukon to find work before finding their burned out camper van turned up on the highway. During that search, police discovered the body of another man, now identified as 64-year-old Leonard Dick, a college botany professor. They soon connected all 3 of the killings and charged the teenagers in Dick's death on Wednesday. Investigators believe the suspects first went north from Port Alberni, British Columbia, to Liard Hot Springs and Dease Lake, where they killed the couple and the professor, and have since been heading east. They ditched another car in Gillum earlier this week, and police believe they are still nearby. Local media is reporting that people in that area are terrified, sleeping with guns close by and closing their businesses early. They're plastering photos of the wanted teens all over town. Bill.
Jackie, thank you. Jackie Heinrich on that story today. 9:33. Thanks.
There are serious questions about this White House's use of personal email. If we are going to preserve our records, we need to preserve them consistently.
It is clear that this is a fishing expedition, and not because it's the daughter of the president. Where is the probable cause here?
I mean, come on now. You don't have to go around probable cause. You're talking about the official records.
House Democrats moving forward with investigations as the Oversight Committee voted to subpoena Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner's personal emails and texts used to conduct official business. Let's bring in Tom Dupree, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under George W. Bush. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Friday, Tom.
Happy Friday.
Thank you so much. Hey, I want to start with another statement from Elijah Cummings. So let's put this up here. You can read. The committee has obtained direct evidence that multiple high-level White House officials have been violating the Presidential Records Act. What we do not know yet is why these White House officials are attempting to conceal these communications. My first question is on that word conceal, because according to Republicans, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are actually cooperating with the committee. Are they trying to conceal anything here?
Well, that's what it's all about. That's a very loaded word, obviously, and I think that there certainly could be situations where you violate the act in a technical sense, meaning you send an email from a personal account or something along those lines, but without an intent to conceal. You just do it inadvertently or for convenience. So I think the congressman may be leaping to a bit of a conclusion here that these violations, if in fact they occurred, were deliberate and intentional.
Is this just convenient timing coming off of Mueller's testimony and things not going as well as Democrats would have liked it to have gone? Are they trying to move on to pointing in another direction and just saying, look away, look over here?
Yeah, look, this shouldn't surprise anyone. The fact that these subpoenas were authorized the day after Mueller's testimony and the big hearing fizzled out, this is all part of the Democrats' overall strategy of litigating in the courts, filing subpoenas. If impeachment's not going to work, Nancy Pelosi clearly wants to show her base that she's being aggressive with this White House. And so I think these subpoenas are the first, and are going to be a long string of these. They're going to be issuing subpoenas through multiple committees, fighting on multiple fronts, trying to drag the administration into court. If impeachment's not happening, this is where the battle is going to occur.
Well, Democrats say that what's fair is fair because Republicans and the president went after Hillary Clinton time and again, and it still comes up about those emails, those 30,000 emails on that private server.
Look, that's a fair point, and frankly, I wish my Democratic friends had been as exercised about Hillary Clinton's use of the personal emails as they are about the Trump administration's use. And look, the fact is this particular inquiry actually began under the Republican control of the House of Representatives. What we're seeing now are the Democrats reigniting this investigation, pursuing it in a more aggressive way, taking subpoenas, probably litigating this in court, assuming that they're not able to reach a compromise with the administration.
But isn't this really all just about 2020?
I think it is. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the Democrats are looking for issues. They're looking for legal violations by the administration. Even if they're footfalls, they're trying to turn the tables on the whole use of personal emails. And as I said a minute ago, they're going to be fighting on multiple fronts. We are going to be seeing a lot of these subpoena battles unfold over the months ahead as the Democrats position themselves for 2020.
But my question is, also on voters, do they really care about these texts and emails at this point when it comes to Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner?
It's hard to believe anyone really cares about this. I think for a lot of people, this is just more noise emanating from Washington. The fact is the Democrats have not done a good job of choosing their battles. If this were a situation where there's just one committee, one subpoena, they were choosing their targets, they were really focusing on things that mattered to Americans, it might be a different story. But what we're seeing now is just this massive flurry, a shotgun approach, all these committees, all these subpoenas, all these issues in hopes of finding something that will stick.
But does the Trump administration risk looking eternally uncooperative with Congress because they're just not going to give up information as quickly as Congress would like? Can that hurt them in the long run?
Well, it could if all of these were fully legitimate investigations where they really were pursuing something tangible as opposed to scoring political points. And look, the fact is, I think a lot of these times in these subpoena battles, they ultimately are resolved through compromise. We've seen many situations already where the House is demanding the administration do something and they meet halfway. Historically, those are the way these types of disputes are resolved. I suspect this particular dispute may well get resolved that way. They may say, here's some emails, here's what went out, let's just put this to rest.
Okay, battle over the information. Tom Dupree, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Tom. Last night, Boston Red Sox kicking off a 4-game series against the Yanks in record-setting fashion. Boston blew out New York 19-3 at home. Fenway Park, man. Most runs the Red Sox have scored against their biggest rival. Yankees get a chance at redemption later tonight in Game 2, 19-3. That's like, why'd we even come out there tonight? Are you a Rockies fan in Colorado, or what are you?
I am a Rockies fan in Colorado, and my son, sadly, is a Rockies fan in Colorado.
Sadly?
Okay.
Oh,
it hasn't been. As he said, we can easily get tickets.
This is true. There is a silver lining there.
Yeah, there is. Well, the Trump administration resuming executions of federal death row inmates following a 15-year moratorium. What went into that decision? Fox News contributor Jonathan Morris will weigh in on that and the moral implications as well. Plus this.
These are mysterious explosions in the middle of the night. Looks spooky, doesn't it? Alarming residents in a big city suburb. What police say is causing that. Check it out.
It does concern you if it's not fireworks and it is gunfire and there is flashes, then where's it coming from?
And near Phoenix. The explosions happening between 1 and 3 a.m. on 3 separate nights this month. No one seems to know what's going on, and residents are worried.
It doesn't sound like it's just some kids blowing up fireworks. It sounds like it's meant to scare people. It's in the middle of the night.
But I wasn't really sure what it was. I thought it could be like fireworks or something, but I was like, it's really late, like who'd do that?
So weird. Police are asking for the public's help as they investigate the blasts.
AG Bill Barr now announcing the federal government will resume capital punishment. First time since 2003, Barr directing prison officials to schedule the executions of 5 death row inmates. This is not common, especially at the federal level. Jonathan Morris, Fox News contributor. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Bill.
Looking good. Life's all right, huh?
Yeah, big changes in my life, but all good.
I know that. Let's get back to that in a moment here. What do you think about this decision? When you look at life and the laws of the country.
Just to be very clear, this is, as you mentioned, this is not very common. And I believe as of last week, there were 63 inmates on death row. And so we're not talking about huge numbers. And so the question is, why is this being done? I think what the Democrats are going to do here, very simply, is try to win the moral high ground on every